Welcome to episode 4 of Chai TV. Hey guys, my name is Derek and I'm your host for this show. And in this morning's show, I'm going to talk to you about these things. So right now, I have 5, not 1, not 2, but 5 different generations of iPhones in my hand. And in today's episode, I just wanted to talk to you guys about upgrading your tech, when it is necessary, and just give you a few tips about what to think about before you decide spending another couple of grand to update something that you may or may not need to upgrade depending on your needs. So it is kind of a casual Saturday morning. It's boiling hot already outside and I've actually had to pull the curtains in this room because the sun is so glary. This episode is not specific to iPhones or smartphones for that matter. I just want to talk to you about tech in general. When is it necessary or when is it appropriate for you to upgrade to the latest? I'm not going to be specifically talking about particular brands or anything like that. I may refer to some brands just to get my experience or my point across, but this is going to be applicable to any device that you have. With all technology, every year a new phone, new tablet, new camera or whatever comes out, and the temptation is always to get the latest and the greatest, and with that comes a significant cost. Tech these days, you're talking about thousands of dollars, not hundreds of dollars, and it is very expensive. And the first thing you got to decide whether you need to upgrade. That's the number one overriding decision is if you've already got a piece of tech, do you need the latest features that are available on the new product, or is the one that you have adequate to serve your needs, and are you better off saving that money? To me, apart from needing the new tech that's available in the latest product, the number one most important factor in deciding whether you're going to upgrade to the latest piece of technology is whether you're financially capable of affording it. We know that there are certain investments, the aim is to achieve a return on investment. Now we know for a fact things like shares, real estate, they're the type of things you invest in. You've heard of things that are called depreciating assets. And the number one depreciating asset that most of us have is our car. With a car, you pay $100,000, $50,000, $20,000, whatever it is. The minute you take it out of the showroom, the value of that car depreciates or goes down. It is very unusual for anyone to be able to sell their car for more than what they paid for. And that's what's called a depreciating asset. What's worse than cars are things like this. Now, phone technology, computer technology, camera technology outdates really quick. Even though only a few months ago, potentially, you bought the top of the line, all the bells and whistles, the latest laptop or camera or phone, it's highly likely that there's something just around the corner that has much better specs than the one you have now. The temptation is always there to get the latest and greatest. Initially, you get a bit upset because you've only just bought this latest thing and now there's something better. The initial response is always, do I need the next one? Now let's talk in general, like with phones, with cameras, with computers. My criteria for upgrading, apart from the first 2 big things, which is whether I need it and 2, whether I can afford it. Number 3 is working out whether there are any actually significantly new features that's actually going to change the game. And I'm talking about stuff that's either going to make your workflow more efficient or something that's going to improve the quality of the final product. So anything that makes your work go faster and easier and smoother, or anything that's going to make your stuff look better at the end. And if the new piece of tech doesn't do any of these things with a reasonable price, then I usually forget it and wait until something better comes along. Because you can't buy new things all the time unless you've got loads and loads of money, and most of us haven't. There's many other things that we need to spend our money on. So here's an example. This is my iPhone 14 Pro Max. As you've seen in some of my previous videos, my upgrade cycle for phones is every 2nd year. It looks like I've got a new phone every year, but we alternate between myself and my wife. So 1 year she upgrades, 1 year I upgrade. In reality, most upgrades are incremental upgrades. Very unusual year after year to see massive changes. For example, this is my current iPhone, which is the 14, and this is my wife's iPhone, which is the 13. They're both Pro Maxes. And apart from the case, they pretty much look exactly the same. There is incremental upgrades, as I said. The processors are newer generation. The battery life is a little bit better. The cameras are a little bit better. The screen's a little bit brighter. Most of the upgrades are on the iOS itself. So if you have a 14 or a 13, in general, whatever you can run on the 14, you can run on the 13, except for this dynamic island thing, which they don't have because it's a hardware issue. A lot of stuff is very similar. And unless you need the better resolution of the camera, unless you need the faster processor, and believe me, you don't need that if you're just doing Instagram and TikToks and checking your email. In case you need more storage, although that was an option when you bought the first phone in the first place. There's an argument as to whether you really need to upgrade from the 13 to the 14. However, a different example is this phone. I can't even remember what generation this is, but this is something I think it's at least 5 years old, and the difference between the two in this situation is significant. So as you can see just from the hardware aspect, you can barely tell the difference between the 14 and 13 if you look at it, but if you look at these two, you can tell the screen is way bigger. There's different cameras on it, not to mention the internals, where there's going to be a significant improvement in the speed, the resolution, the ability to do stuff on the 14 compared to the iPhone, whatever this is. As I said, I can't even remember. This phone doesn't have a macro lens. It's unable to shoot in portrait mode. It doesn't shoot in Pro RAW and all that kind of stuff. So that's a significant upgrade. And if you're going from this to this, yes. If you're going from, for example, an Apple Watch Series 7 to an Apple Watch Series 8, tiny increases in battery life, you've got the new temperature sensor, but that's pretty much it. And unless you need those features, I find that not so a compelling upgrade. One other thing that you got to remember when you upgrade stuff is the accessories. Every time you buy a new phone, even if it's not such a dramatic difference, even if it's this and this, you have to remember that you're going to need new screen protectors, new case. That's going to set you back probably about $100. So that's an extra expense. And what are you going to do with the old phone? Are you going to sell it? You're going to hand it down to another member of the family, or are you just going to leave it in the cupboard? Not 12 months ago, this phone was $2,000, and now you're just not doing anything with it unless you're putting it to good use by giving it to somebody else who can use it. So staying on with phones for a minute, in the case of something like this phone compared to this phone, Lightning, which is fine. Next year, it's likely that the iPhone's going to have USB-C because the European rules have changed that, and anything that you have Lightning probably won't work on the new phone without an adapter. And if you compare these two phones, Lightning connector, no other holes. This one, Lightning connector, headphones. So the headphones that you use for this phone, if you were to upgrade to this phone, won't work without another adapter. Apple's moved away from corded things. It wants to sell its AirPods and its AirPods Pro, and the only way you can connect a wired headset to an iPhone 14 now is to get one that either plugs into Lightning or just a standard plug that you put on an adapter and plugs into Lightning. That's an extra expense as well. Now, to be honest, the last time there was a huge increase in the specs of an iPhone, the one that really was compelling, was when Apple went to 5G. That was a couple of years ago now. That was a game changer. Apple hasn't come out with anything else that's really compelling. Yes, it's gone to facial ID, and now you can still do the Face ID when you have masks. But it's not like they've done something really totally out of the ballpark like Samsung, which has released their folding phones. Apple hasn't done anything that's changed the actual kind of configuration of the hardware and the way it works. You were a Samsung user and you went from a phone like this kind of shape to a folding phone. That is a major upgrade in my opinion. Now, in terms of iPads, there are all these new iPads now. There's iPad mini, there's iPad Air, there's iPad Pro. Whether you upgrade from one to the other or whether you upgrade between generations of iPads really depends once again on your use. Most people use their iPads to do pretty much what they do on their phone. They use social media and they watch YouTube videos and watch Netflix. Any of the iPads are capable of doing that no matter what generation of they are. Yes, the iPad Pros have a bigger screen, potentially if you get the 12.9. They have a faster M2 chip, but they're way more expensive than the other ones. They've got this magic keyboard thing which you'll need to update from time to time as you upgrade. And the thing too is with Apple Pencil, the iPad Pros work with Apple Pencil 2, but some of the new iPads still use Apple Pencil 1, and you're going to have to get adapters because the new iPads that use Apple Pencil 1 have a USB-C port now, and the Apple Pencil 1 plugs in via Lightning, so you need a Lightning to USB-C adapter. And again, you need to buy new cases for them, you need to buy potentially a keyboard, you need to buy new screen protectors, and there's a couple of $100 easily, again, that you have to spend every time you upgrade, in addition to the actual hardware that you're upgrading. And the last thing that I wanted to talk to you about are cameras. Now, cameras, we all love new cameras. I love new cameras. And we've all heard of this thing called GAS, which is the Gear Acquisition Syndrome. So what that means is we spend more time and more effort and more attention upgrading our gear than we do actually using the gear. Unless you're into professional photography or videography, most of the cameras are more than capable of doing what you need to do in general terms. Now, the more advanced cameras, to be fair, yes, they're more expensive. They are much better featured. They've got better resolution, you can get better lenses. But with that, the biggest trade-off apart from the cost is the fact that all these cameras which offer all this extra technology, they tend to be big. And for 99% of people who don't want to carry a big giant mirrorless or digital SLR around, whilst these specs are good, they're not useful because you just don't carry them with you. For example, yes, there's a huge difference between using a kit 16 to 55mm lens, which does okay. There's a big difference between carrying one of them around and the 24-70 2.8, which is $3,000, but it's also, 3, 4, 5 times heavier, and most people aren't going to do that anyway. And if you're I like to bring my camera out, I want to take pictures of the scenery when I travel, of my family, of my dog, does it really matter if you have a 20 megapixel or a 22 megapixel sensor? I would think not. Does it matter if you can change in better lenses? Yes, it does, but again, there's a lot of cost and there's a lot of weight associated with that, so it may not be something that you'd be prepared to do anyway. In terms of cameras, my biggest thing for anyone who's thinking about upgrading a camera who is not a professional photographer is autofocus. Most people who take pictures get really disappointed when they take pictures of their kids, take pictures of their pets, and the photos come out blurry and out of focus. The ability to have lots more autofocus points is actually a plus in this situation, because with the improvement in the autofocus, especially with the new stuff which has eye autofocus, and not only do they do humans, they do pets as well, some of them, that's going to increase your chances of getting a good picture, and that's certainly worth the upgrade. If you get more autofocus points, faster autofocus, that's certainly a plus, and that would be one reason why as a casual photographer I would upgrade my gear. So I know I've rambled on a little bit about stuff in this episode of Chai Tea, and I'm not even drinking tea today because just didn't get around to making it, to be honest. Again, as I said, my criteria for upgrading technology, let me repeat, has this short list. Number one is that I need it. Sometimes wanting it is good, but want is just greedy. But if you need it for a specific reason, if you need a camera that can shoot close up better, if you need a camera that has more focus points, if you need a camera that can shoot 4K, they're all the type of stuff I'm talking about. If you need an iPad that's capable of editing in Adobe Premiere, that may be a reason to upgrade your processor. If you need a phone that needs 5G, if you need a phone that shoots 4K, if you need a phone that has macro and portrait mode, if you need a phone that has a bigger screen, those are the kind of reasons that I would upgrade. I wouldn't upgrade just because Apple or Samsung or whatever other brand you tells you that this is the latest and greatest. After all, most of the incremental upgrades don't amount to much in terms of personal experience, and every time you buy a phone or a tablet or a camera, you're looking at thousands of dollars, which can be better off spent by actually investing that money and getting a return, because you never ever get to sell any of your gear at a better price than what you bought it. So sometimes it's important to resist the temptation of just having the newest thing because everyone else has it. This whole keeping up with the Joneses thing really doesn't help you save up and secure your financial future, and you're never going to be able to catch up with everyone. Someone's going to have something better than you, faster than you, nicer than you, more expensive than you, and it's just a futile effort. The one caveat of what I suggested, the one caveat to all of this, which I haven't mentioned during this little chat, is that if you do decide that you're going to upgrade your piece of tech to the latest thing, I would advise you to get the highest spec thing that you can get that you can afford. Settling is never a good idea when it comes to tech. If you've always wanted the iPhone 14 Pro, I'm going to use that example again. If you always wanted the iPhone 14 Pro Max because you want to shoot lots of video with it, and then you look at the price and you freak out because it's $2,500 for the top of the line version, you're going to be really disappointed if you settle for the iPhone 14. Because what's going to happen is you're not going to be as happy with the camera. You're going to say, oh, I don't get to use all those camera features. And I've only got, for example, 64 gigabytes RAM. There's not going to be enough to hold anything. I'm going to have to transfer stuff all the time. It's going to be a pain. You do save a number of hundreds of dollars, but it's not the thing that you wanted in the first place. And it doesn't suit your needs. And for the sake of saving a few $100s for getting something that doesn't suit your needs, that leads to regret and leads you to either not doing what you wanted to do with the phone in the first place, or actually saying, well, screw this, I need to get the latest one anyway, but you've wasted $1,000 on the stuff you didn't even actually want. It's something that I've done in the past, and that's the worst thing to do. So purchase what you can afford. within reason, and go a little bit above. So if you don't think you need 512 gigabytes, but you do shoot video and currently you're using only 120, it may be worthwhile getting the 512 rather than the 256 because of the potential that you're going to need it. But you've got to be pretty certain that you're going to actually use it for that purpose, and you're going to make sure that you can afford it. But don't settle. The better thing to do is actually, if that's what you really want, is to actually save until you can get the better one, rather than buy it now and get the crappier one that you're not going to like in a month's time anyway. So I hope that I've given you some food for thought in this video. I know I've just ranted about different pieces of technology. Really, tech is what it is. It's a means to help you get what you actually want to do with it, rather than just having a piece of tech. The final result, the content that you produce or the workflow that you're able to achieve as efficiently as possible, is the reason why I upgrade, and it should be your reason why you upgrade. The temptation's always high to get the latest and the best and the greatest, but if you don't need it, you don't need it. If you think about it, you've got a phone, you've got a tablet potentially, you may have a camera, you have TVs, you have music stuff, spending all your hard-earned income on upgrading tech that you don't really need to upgrade. So think carefully, make a wise decision, get the best that you can afford based on what you need, and if you don't need it, don't get it. If you can't afford it, don't get it. Don't be envious of other people who have the $4,000 Apple Watch with the Hermes watch band, because you don't need it. So that's all I've got to say in this episode, which is episode number 4 of Chai TV. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you have a great weekend, and just go out there and use the tech that you have and create. And until next time, thanks for watching. Remember to like, subscribe to my videos, and I'll catch you next time in another episode of Chai TV. See ya.